Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are taking a seriously incredible, immersive tour of a society that has captured the human imagination for over 500 years. We're going to explore Sir Thomas More's fascinating fictional society, a place of radical equality, some very peculiar customs, and profound philosophical questions. Get ready to completely rethink everything you know about wealth, work, and justice.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with Welcome to Nowhere, then look into the utopian economy, talk about toilets made of gold, yes, you heard that right, then war, peace, and religion, and finally, the fate of Thomas More.
All right, Section 1, Welcome to Nowhere.
So, I want you to imagine traveling to a highly specific, totally unique island nation. It's completely isolated from the rest of the world, yet entirely self-sufficient. Now, to really get this place, we first have to look at the name itself, Utopia. It's a word we use all the time in political science, right? But the origins are just brilliantly ironic. It comes from the Greek words o, meaning not, and topos, meaning place. So literally, it means a place that exists nowhere but in our imaginations. Thomas More wrote about this completely fictional no place way back in 1516, cleverly packaging all of his real-world political experience and ideas into a society that, well, doesn't actually exist.
Now, what is really wild here is the sheer level of geographic and social uniformity. It's all designed so that absolutely no citizen is superior to another. The island itself is a 200-mile crescent. And get this, it was actually once connected to the mainland until its founder, a ruler named Utopia, dug a 15-mile-wide canal just to isolate it. Across this island, you've got 54 massive, identically governed cities. The capital, Amarat, is heavily fortified with deep, thorn-filled trenches and huge underground water reservoirs for sieges. But inside those city walls, it is a totally different story. Complete equality. There is zero private property. Everyone wears the exact same clothes. I mean, the doors to the houses don't even have locks. They just close automatically and anyone can walk right in. And to completely kill any sense of ownership, citizens are legally required to swap houses every 10 years.
So you might be wondering, how do you even govern a place with absolutely no private property? Well, you build a highly structured democratic ladder. First, every 30 families elect a magistrate. Then every 10 magistrates elect an archflirch. Finally, 200 magistrates come together and elect a prince by secret ballot. But the absolutely crucial part here is the built-in accountability. The prince serves for life, but there's a massive catch. They could be yanked from power immediately if they are found guilty of acting against the public interest.
Moving right along to Section 2, the utopian economy.
You know, when you completely wipe out private property, it fundamentally changes every single aspect of daily life, starting with time itself. In this society, every single person only works 6 hours a day. That's it. Out of a 24-hour day, they dedicate 8 hours to sleep, and the rest of the time is entirely theirs to focus on health, reading, or just learning the art of being a good citizen. Now, to understand how they actually pull this off, we have to look at the real 16th century world that More was living in. Back in Europe, massive chunks of the population were completely economically idle. You had government officials, lords, wealthy merchants, and a system where roughly 50% of the population, women, were largely kept out of productive economic labor. That left a huge burden on a very small, overworked class of farmers and laborers. But in Utopia, absolutely no one is idle. Literally everyone works. Women are fully integrated into the workforce, often weaving, and even the highest government magistrates are out there doing physical labor. Because this burden is entirely equally shared, that 6-hour workday is actually more than enough to produce everything they need, with plenty of surplus left over.
And that surplus, it's managed through a system of completely free exchange. Villagers grow crops and just give the food to the cities for free. In return, the urban workers manufacture goods and provide them to the villages, also for free. And to keep things perfectly equal, they even swap environments. City dwellers will regularly move out to the country to work the fields, and villagers will move into the city to learn manual trades like carpentry. It's like a giant, perfectly balanced ecosystem.
Which brings us to Section 3, toilets made of gold.
Okay, let's step into one of the most absurd and frankly hilarious aspects of this whole culture. Their lack of private property extends deep into their social conditioning. Utopia produces a massive surplus, which they export to neighboring countries. But since they don't believe in private wealth, what do they do with all the gold and silver they get in return? They hoard it,
but definitely not to admire it. They intentionally use gold and silver to build everyday toilets. They literally forge golden chains to bind enslaved criminals. And pearls and diamonds? Those are given exclusively to their children as toys. From the time they're babies, utopians are socially conditioned to view precious metals as completely useless bathroom fixtures and playthings. They figure, nature gave us the essentials in abundance, like air and water, and gold is only rare because it is biologically useless.
This whole cultural mindset leads to this amazing little anecdote in the source material. 3 foreign ambassadors arrive in Utopia, totally clueless about local customs. Believing Utopia to be a poor island nation, the ambassadors try to flex their wealth. They show up absolutely dripping in gold wire, diamond rings, and pearl-studded hats. But when the Utopians come to greet them, they completely ignore the bedazzled ambassadors. Why? Because they thought they were slaves, since they were wearing the metal of chains and toilets. Instead, they paid their respects to the modestly dressed servants. And the Utopian kids, seeing grown men wearing diamonds, were tugging at their moms asking why these adults were wearing toys. The mothers famously replied, perhaps these are clowns, working to make people laugh. Needless to say, the ambassadors were utterly disgraced by their own attempts to show off.
All right, moving on to Section 4, War, Peace, and Religion.
This intense pragmatism spills right over into how utopians handle foreign policy. Utopians absolutely despise war. They refuse to form military alliances or conquer nations. But if war is forced upon them, they have a highly practical 3-step approach designed to minimize innocent civilian casualties. Step 1, and this is just wild, they take all that hoarded toilet gold and place a massive bounty on the enemy ruler's head. They know the hostile leader is the real problem, not the entire nation, so they essentially incentivize the enemy's own people to overthrow them. Step 2. If the bounty fails, they use their wealth to hire foreign mercenaries to fight the battles for them. Step 3. Only as a total, absolute last resort do they deploy their own citizens. But if they are invaded, both male and female utopians are heavily trained in combat and will fiercely defend their highly shielded cities.
Their internal justice and belief systems are just as radical for the 16th century. Multiple religions are totally allowed, though most worship a single god named Mithras. And remarkably, women, especially widows, are highly encouraged to become religious leaders. When it comes to the legal system, there is not a single lawyer in all of Utopia. Citizens just argue their own cases directly to a judge in layman's terms, completely cutting out all the complex legalese and heavy fees. And maybe most progressively, they have zero death penalty. Instead, serious criminals are enslaved. They even treat foreign slaves better than their own fallen citizens, reasoning that a utopian had the best education and really should have known better. It's a harsh system for sure, but it's completely devoid of the arbitrary cruelty that was so common in More's actual world.
Which leads us to Section 5, The Fate of Thomas More. So it all sounds incredibly rational and peaceful, right? Well, now we have to violently snap back to the brutal, chaotic reality of 16th century Britain, where the author actually lived. The book's narrator, a traveler named Raphael Hethelode, contrasts the perfect island with the harsh realities of real-world Britain. In More's time, soldiers discharged after wars were left completely unemployed by the government. Meanwhile, greedy landlords were converting vital farmland into highly profitable sheep pastures, displacing thousands of agricultural workers. This systemic, severe unemployment led directly to mass theft, basically just so people could survive. And the British response? The death penalty. Lawyers literally argued for executing thieves, a cruel policy that punished the poor for a systemic crisis they didn't even create. While utopian logic argued for teaching skills and restoring agriculture, British logic just relied on the executioner's axe. And tragically, the executioner's axe is exactly where this story ends for our author. In 1516, Sir Thomas More writes Utopia, presenting this ideal state of tolerance and reason. But by the 1530s, his real-world boss, King Henry VIII, decided to break away from the Catholic Church to form the Protestant Church of England. More was a devout Catholic, so he loudly opposed this and refused to take a loyalty oath recognizing the king as the head of the church. In 1535, for simply refusing to abandon his beliefs, the very architect of the ultimate peaceful society was found guilty of treason. He was executed and his head was spiked on London Bridge as a brutal warning to others. It wasn't until 4 centuries later, in 1935, that the Catholic Church officially recognized him as a martyr.
Which really leaves us with a final, striking question to ponder. If the creator of a perfect world was executed by the real one for simply holding a different belief, does Utopia truly serve as a blueprint for the future? Or was it always just a mirror, reflecting the fatal flaws, cruelties, and unyielding greed of human nature? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this journey into nowhere gave you a lot to think about right here in reality.